Today, we're doing a deep dive into Atomic Habits by James Clear. He's definitely a top expert on habits and behavior change. This book, it's honestly a phenomenon for a reason. It shows how these tiny, tiny daily changes can build up into massive results over time. You'll discover how seemingly insignificant actions, things you barely notice, can compound into these life-altering transformations.
That's absolutely right. And it's not really about radical overhauls. You don't need some huge epiphany to change your life. It's more about understanding the subtle systems, but incredibly powerful systems that underpin all our behavior. We're going to unpack how Clear illustrates the surprising potency, really, of making small, consistent improvements. Think of it as like a shortcut to truly understanding how to build a better version of yourself, one tiny deliberate step at a time. And what's truly insightful here, I think, is how universal these principles are. They apply whether you're, say, trying to write a book, get healthy, or learn a new skill. Anything, really.
Okay, so let's get into these fundamentals. The power of tiny changes and identity. We often hear about setting these huge goals, don't we? Massive, life-changing ambitions. But Clear makes this really compelling argument right from Chapter 1, the surprising power of atomic habits. He says, true, lasting success isn't really about those monumental shifts or chasing big goals. It's actually about the accumulation, the compounding of small, consistent improvements. And these are driven by effective systems. It kind of asks us to shift our focus, doesn't it? From what I want to how I'll get there day by day.
Precisely. Yeah. And that's why he puts such a strong emphasis on focusing on systems over goals. Yeah. Goals, they provide direction, sure, a target. Mm-hmm. But they don't actually guarantee progress. It's the daily process, the system you build and follow, that actually provides that forward momentum. If you're just fixated on the distant result, you might completely miss the small, consistent efforts needed today. It raises a really critical question for all of us, I think. Are you spending your energy building the foundation for long-term success, brick by tiny brick, or are you maybe just wishing for an outcome without really building the scaffolding to support it?
That's such a key distinction, and it ties directly into something else he talks about early on, something called the plateau of latent potential. This concept, for me, was a real light bulb moment, because progress often isn't linear, is it? You might be putting in consistent effort day after day, building those habits, but for a while, you just don't see any visible results. The change kind of lags behind.
Right, feels like nothing's happening.
Exactly. He uses the metaphor of melting ice. Imagine trying to melt an ice cube by raising the room temperature from, say, 25 degrees Fahrenheit. You can go up 26, 27, 30, 31 degrees, and nothing. The ice is still solid. It looks the same. But the moment you hit 32 degrees, bam, it starts melting, seemingly all at once. All that unseen effort, all that energy put in below 32 degrees suddenly pays off.
And that's where so many people get discouraged, isn't it? They give up right before the breakthrough.
Right. They don't realize they've been building up all this latent potential.
It's a really powerful metaphor because it illustrates how improvement is often like, compound interest for yourself. Clear actually shows the math. A tiny 1% improvement each day leads to becoming nearly 37 times better in a single year.
37 times, that's huge from just 1%.
It's incredible. But conversely, a 1% daily decline, which also seems tiny, leads you almost down to zero by the end of the year. This exponential effect, this compounding, is precisely what makes those tiny changes so incredibly powerful over time. It's not about the huge leaps. It's about those small, incremental gains that build silently, almost imperceptibly, until, boom, they manifest as massive transformations. It really speaks to patience,
And the classic real-world example he uses for this is the British cycling team. This is just fascinating. They weren't looking for one big silver bullet, one massive change to win gold medals. Their approach was famously called the aggregation of marginal gain.
Marginal gains.
Which meant finding hundreds of tiny, tiny 1% improvements across every single aspect of cycling. We're talking things like redesigning the bike seat slightly, finding better massage gels, optimizing the athlete's nutrition, even figuring out the best pillow for sleep quality.
Things you would even think of.
Exactly. Individually, none of these seem like much. A tiny improvement here, a 0.5% there. But collectively, they compounded into this absolutely unprecedented success. They dominated the Olympics, the Tour de France. It really drives home how these seemingly insignificant details can add up to make a massive difference. It creates this edge that seems almost unreal.
So the practical takeaway here for you listening is maybe to reflect on areas in your own life. Where could you identify just a 1% improvement? It doesn't have to be earth-shattering. How can you shift your focus maybe just a little from the desired outcome, say, writing a whole novel, to the daily process writing just 100 words today?
Just starting that system.
Exactly. Try thinking about just one tiny system you could implement today, no matter how small it feels. That first step, that first vote.
Okay, that brings us really nicely to the second big foundational idea in Chapter 2, how your habits shape your identity and vice versa. This concept, honestly, it really shifted my perspective on behavior change. The core idea is that true, lasting change doesn't come from just focusing on outcomes. It comes from fundamentally shifting your identity. Your habits are essentially a reflection of the person you believe yourself to be.
That's a profound insight, isn't it? Really gets to the core of it. Clear breaks down behavior change into three distinct layers. Most people, he says, focus on the outermost layer, outcomes. That's what you get, like losing weight or finishing a project.
Right, the results.
Then there's the middle layer,
Yeah.
processes. This is what you actually do, going to the gym, writing daily, meditating. But the deepest, most sustainable change, the kind that truly sticks, happens at the identity level. This is about what you believe about yourself, the kind of person you are. And if we think about why willpower often fails us, well, it's frequently because you're trying to act against your deeply held self-perception. If you still see yourself deep down as an unhealthy person, making healthy choices consistently feels like a constant battle, right? You're fighting your own identity.
Exactly. And that's where identity-based habits come in. It's a different approach. Instead of an outcome-based goal like, I want to write a book, you reframe it to an identity-based one, I am a writer.
Ah, the shift in language is key.
It really is. The identity focus is on the kind of person you want to become, and then the habits become a natural, almost inevitable extension of that identity. What's so compelling, I think, is this idea that every single action you take is like casting a vote for the type of person you wish to become.
I love that metaphor. A vote.
Yeah. So each time you sit down to write, even if it's just for 5 minutes, you're casting a vote for I am a writer. You're strengthening that identity bit by bit.
And this creates a really powerful self-reinforcing feedback loop. Every time you perform a habit that aligns with your desired identity, you're not just making progress on the task, you're also reinforcing that identity within yourself. It becomes this virtuous cycle that makes habits stick, not because you have to do them, but because it's simply who you are.
It feels natural.
Exactly.
Unique.
The more votes you cast, the stronger that new identity becomes, and the more the aligned behaviors feel less like a chore and more like just expressing yourself.
So the practical takeaway here, ask yourself genuinely, what kind of person do you want to be? How would that person act in the situations relevant to your goals? Then pick one incredibly small action you can take today that votes for that identity. If you want to be a healthy person, maybe choose one healthy snack today, or take one short walk, just one tiny vote to start reinforcing that identity.
Okay, so following these foundational ideas, Clear then gives us a really practical framework in Chapter 3, how to build better habits in 4 simple steps. The core idea here is that all habits, good or bad, function as a loop of cue, craving, response, and reward. Understanding this loop is absolutely fundamental, he argues, for designing better habits and also for dismantling the bad ones. And this understanding leads directly to his 4 laws of behavior change.
This habit loop, it's really the backbone of the entire book, isn't it? And it seems simple, but it's incredibly powerful when you break it down. Let's go through each stage. First, you have the cue. This is the trigger, basically. The piece of information that signals to your brain that a reward might be available.
Like your phone buzzing.
Exactly. Perfect example. That buzz is the cue. It alerts your brain. Next comes the craving. This is the motivational force, the desire or the prediction of the reward. When your phone buzzes, you immediately get that little itch, that craving to know what the notification is about, right? It's the desire for connection or information, or maybe just distraction.
The anticipation.
Right. After that, you have the response. This is the actual habit you perform, picking up the phone, unlocking it, checking the app. And finally, there's the reward. This is the satisfaction you get, the feeling of connection or relief from boredom, or the dopamine hit from new info. And crucially, this reward reinforces the entire loop. It teaches your brain, hey, that sequence worked, let's do it again next time the cue appears. It's a brilliant, self-perpetuating system.
Yes, exactly. And building on this deep understanding of the habit loop, Clear translates it into the 4 laws of behavior change, making it super actionable. For the cue, the first law is make it obvious. We need to see the trigger. To address the craving, the second law is make it attractive. We need to want to do it. For the response, the third law is make it easy. It needs to be frictionless. And finally, for the reward, the 4th law is make it satisfying. We need to feel good afterwards.
Obvious, attractive, easy, satisfying. Got it.
It's a complete toolkit, really, for engineering your own behavior.
And what's so powerful, I think, is that these laws aren't just for building good habits. You can flip them, use them in reverse to break bad habits. So make it invisible, make it unattractive, make it difficult, and make it unsatisfying.
Precisely. It's like having a universal remote control for all your behaviors, whether
Mm.
you want to strengthen them or weaken them.
Mm.
So practical takeaway from this fundamental framework. Maybe think of one specific habit you want to build right now. Can you identify a potential cue for it? What craving might it fulfill for you? How incredibly simple can you make the response? And what clear reward will you get immediately after? This framework, cue, craving, response, reward, and the 4 laws, will really serve as our guide for the rest of this deep dive.
All right, so with those fundamentals laid out, let's dive into the first law. Make it obvious. It sounds simple enough, make it obvious. But Clear shows us just how deep this goes, starting in chapter 4, The Man Who Didn't Look Right. The core idea here is that awareness is the absolute crucial first step to changing any habit. Because so many of our habits, especially the ones we maybe want to change, are actually invisible to us. We do them completely automatically, without conscious thought.
It's such a common blind spot, isn't it? We operate on autopilot for so much of our day. These routines, they just fade into the background noise. We might not even realize how often we check our phone or grab a snack or, procrastinate online because the cues and responses are just so deeply ingrained we don't even notice them.
Yeah, exactly. So to combat this lack of awareness, Clear introduces a really fantastic, simple tool called the Habit Scorecard. This is where you basically conduct an audit of your own daily behavior. You just list out your habits as you go through your day, and then you rate them. Maybe a plus for a good habit you want to keep, a play for a bad one you want to ditch, and for neutral ones.
Just observing. No judgment yet.
Right. The simple act of observing and writing them down, he argues, can illuminate patterns you never even consciously registered before. It's like shining a flashlight into those dark corners of your automatic behaviors, revealing the invisible habits that are actually shaping your entire day.
And there's a fascinating real-world example he gives of how powerful this kind of conscious awareness can be. It's called pointing and calling. It's a safety system used by train conductors in Japan.
Oh, I've heard of this.
Yeah. They literally point at important objects like a signal light or the train doors or the speed gauge, and they call out the status aloud. Signal is green. Doors closed.
They actually say it out loud.
They do. And this seemingly simple act of verbalizing and physically acknowledging the action dramatically increases their awareness and significantly reduces errors. It just shows that by making an unconscious process conscious, even just for a split second, you gain immense control. It's a great reminder of how a simple physical act can boost mindfulness.
Okay, so for your practical takeaway for this bit, try creating a habit scorecard for yourself. Maybe just for a few hours this afternoon or even for a whole day tomorrow. Simply observe and list your actions. Don't judge, just notice. You might be genuinely surprised, even shocked, at what you uncover about your own patterns. It's that essential first step.
Okay, building on that awareness, the next key insight within Make It Obvious, covered in Chapter 5, The Best Way to Start a New Habit, is about being really specific. It's about actively defining when and where your new habits will occur, and crucially, attaching them to routines you already have.
This is where implementation intentions come in, and the research on these is actually incredibly strong. They're super powerful. It's about moving beyond just vague aspirations like, I want to exercise more.
Which rarely works on its own.
Right. Instead, you create a very precise, concrete plan using the format. I will behavior at time and location. So it becomes something really specific like, I will meditate for 1 minute at 7 a.m. in my kitchen.
Crystal clear.
Exactly. That level of clarity specifies the cue, 7 a.m. in the kitchen, and drastically reduces any ambiguity or need for decision-making in the moment. It makes you far more likely to actually follow through. It's like preloading the decision.
And then there's another brilliant strategy he introduces called habit stacking. This is all about linking a new habit you want to form to an existing habit that you already do consistently without even thinking about it.
Like brushing your teeth.
Exactly. That existing habit serves as the automatic cue for the new one. The format is beautifully simple. After I current habit, I will do new habit. So maybe it's after I brush my teeth at night, I will floss 1 tooth. Or after I pour my morning coffee, I will meditate for 1 minute.
Stacking them together.
Precisely. This strategy cleverly leverages the routines you already have wired in, making it incredibly easy to integrate new behaviors without needing extra willpower or, remembering to start something totally new from scratch. You're just adding a new link to an existing chain.
All right, practical takeaway time again. Choose one new habit you genuinely want to start building. First, formulate a really precise implementation intention for it. I will do X at time Y and place Z. Then, try habit stacking it. Find a current solid habit in your day and link the new one right after it using the after-before formula. See how much smoother it feels.
Now, beyond specific plans, our broader environment plays a huge, often underestimated role in making habits obvious. This is Chapter 6. Motivation is overrated. Environment often matters more. The core idea is that your environment, your physical space, your social surroundings is a powerful, often invisible shaper of your daily habits. And designing your space deliberately to make good habits obvious and convenient is far more effective and way more sustainable than just trying to rely on sheer willpower all the time.
Oh, it's astonishing how true that is when you start noticing it. Our surroundings are constantly nudging us, influencing our choices, often completely beneath our conscious awareness. It really is like an invisible hand guiding our behavior.
Yeah.
Think about it. If there's a bowl of cookies sitting right there on the kitchen counter, you're just far more likely to grab one than if they're hidden away in a high cupboard.
Out of sight, out of mind, literally.
Exactly. Your environment can be either your greatest ally or your biggest saboteur when it comes to habits.
Right. So environment design is all about consciously making the cues for your desired habits visible and easily accessible. Put the fruit bowl right in the middle of the counter. Lay out your gym clothes the night before, right by your bed so you practically trip over them.
Lowering the friction.
Precisely. Layering the activation energy. And conversely, you want to make the cues for your bad habits invisible, or at least difficult to access. Hide the junk food. Put the TV remote in a drawer in another room. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it really underscores that success in habit formation is often less about brute forcing your will and more about becoming an architect of your environment. You're setting yourself up to win.
And it's not just about physical objects, right? He also talks about context sensitivity. Habits are often deeply tied to specific contexts or environments, so sometimes just changing your environment can be enough to naturally break old, unhelpful patterns and make space for new ones.
Like starting a new job or moving house can disrupt old routines.
Exactly. All the old cues are gone, so it's a natural reset point.
Okay, so your practical takeaway here. Take a good look around your immediate environment right now. Your desk, your kitchen, your living room. How could you redesign it, even in small ways, to make your desired good habits more obvious and convenient? And how could you hide or make less obvious the cues for the habits you want to avoid? A few minutes spent on this kind of thoughtful environmental design can genuinely save you hours of battling your own willpower later on.
This leads us perfectly into Chapter 7, The Secret to Self-Control. And the secret, according to Clear, is maybe not what you think. The core idea here is that true, effective self-control isn't really about having immense, superhuman willpower. Instead, it's about strategically reducing your exposure to the cues that trigger your bad habits in the first place. It's proactive, not reactive.
This is such a critical point because, let's face it, willpower is unreliable. It's a finite resource. Think of it like a muscle that gets tired with use, or a phone battery that drains throughout the day.
Yeah, by 8 p.m., mine's usually pretty low.
Exactly. Constantly resisting temptation is exhausting. It depletes your mental energy and often leads to giving in eventually, especially when you're tired or stressed. Relying solely on willpower is setting yourself up for inconsistency.
So the most effective way to actually eliminate a bad habit isn't to try and fight it head-on with sheer grit, which is often a losing battle. It's to remove its cues from your environment entirely, cut it off at the source. For example, if you want to watch less TV, maybe unplug it and put the remote control in a different room or even a closet. If you eat too many chips, simply don't buy them. Don't bring them into the house.
Make the trigger invisible.
Exactly. This preemptive strike, removing the temptation before it even arises, is far, far more effective than trying to resist a craving once it's already been triggered and your brain is lighting up.
And Clear uses a really compelling, almost extreme example here. Soldiers returning from the Vietnam War. He points out studies showing that many soldiers who had developed severe heroin addictions while overseas spontaneously quit almost overnight when they returned home to the U.S.
Just like that.
Pretty much. And it wasn't because they suddenly gained incredible willpower on the flight home. It was because their environment changed completely. All the cues associated with drug use, the specific people, the places, the wartime stress, the easy availability of the drug, they were all gone.
Wow.
Wow. That's powerful.
It really highlights that changing your environment can be infinitely more powerful than trying to change your character through sheer force of will. You're not fighting yourself, You're just changing the battlefield so the fight doesn't even happen.
Okay, your practical takeaway for this crucial insight. Identify one specific bad habit you really want to break. Now think honestly. What are its strongest cues in your immediate environment? What triggers that urge? And then how can you remove or significantly reduce your exposure to those specific cues? This seemingly simple act of removal can be incredibly liberating and surprisingly effective. All right, so we've made our desired habits obvious. The next critical step, the second law, is to make it attractive. This is where your cravings and desires come into play, and it's a really powerful lever for shaping behavior. The core idea, explored starting in Chapter 8, How to Make a Habit Irresistible, is that habits become much more appealing when we associate them with positive feelings, or when we cleverly pair them with something we already really enjoy doing.
Ah, yes. This is where temptation bundling comes in. And I think the strategy is just genius. It's so practical. It's all about pairing an action you need to do, but maybe don't love, with an action you want to do and genuinely enjoy.
Linking the chore to the treat.
Exactly. So maybe you only allow yourself to watch your favorite trashy reality show while you're on the exercise bike, or perhaps you only listen to that gripping true crime podcast you love while you're doing the washing up or folding laundry.
Right.
This strategy brilliantly leverages your existing desire for the want activity to make the need activity suddenly feel much, much more attractive. You're basically piggybacking the effort onto the pleasure.
And this connects really deeply to the role of dopamine in driving our behavior. It's fascinating, actually. It's not just the pleasure of the reward itself that motivates us. Often, even more powerfully, it's the anticipation of that reward.
The wanting, not just the having.
Precisely. Our brains release dopamine in anticipation of a reward, creating that feeling of desire, that drive, that motivation. So with temptation bundling, you're making the process of the less desirable habit more exciting because it's linked to the anticipation of the enjoyable one. And over time, our brains naturally link behaviors to the feelings they produce. By consistently associating these good but maybe initially difficult habits with positive experiences, you gradually build a stronger craving for them. They start to feel like something you get to do, not just something you have to do.
Okay, time for a practical takeaway. Think of a habit you consistently struggle with, one you kind of dread. Now, what's something you genuinely, truly enjoy doing? A guilty pleasure, a favorite podcast, a TV show. Can you combine the two? Can you use temptation bundling, making the enjoyable thing contingent on doing the difficult habit? Give it a try. You might be really surprised by how much more appealing that once dreaded task suddenly becomes.
Now, beyond these individual strategies, our social world plays a massive, massive role in what we find attractive. This brings us to Chapter 9, the role of family and friends in shaping your habits. The core idea here is fundamental. Humans are inherently social creatures. We can't escape it. And our habits are deeply, often unconsciously influenced by the people around us. We naturally tend to imitate the habits of three key groups: the close, the many, and the powerful.
This is so profoundly true, isn't it? We're constantly absorbing behaviors from our social environment, often without even realizing we're doing it. It just seeps in.
Clear breaks down these imitation factors really clearly. First, there are the close. These are our family, our friends, our partners. We absorb habits directly from them. Their norms quickly become our norms. If your closest friends all smoke, it's harder not to smoke. If they all run marathons.
You feel the pull to join in.
Exactly. Then there's the many. This is about adopting habits that are common within our broader culture or within a specific group we belong to. These are powerful social norms. We want to fit in. It really raises an important question, doesn't it? Are you truly aware of how the collective behavior around you at work, in your community, online, is subtly influencing your own individual choices? Maybe pushing you in directions you haven't consciously chosen.
It's a sobering thought. And finally, there are the powerful. We are inherently influenced by the behavior of people we see as having high status or influence leaders, celebrities, mentors, people we admire. We look up to them and we instinctively want to emulate their behaviors, thinking it might lead to similar success or approval.
And this understanding leads to an incredibly powerful, proactive strategy: deliberately joining the right group. Clear emphasizes the immense power of actively seeking out and becoming part of groups where your desired behavior is already the established norm.
Surround yourself with the people you want to be like.
Precisely. If you want to become a dedicated reader, join a book club. If you want to be a consistent runner, join a running group or find an online fitness community. This creates this powerful social pull towards your goals. The behavior almost becomes automatic because it's just what the group does. It's the expected standard. What's truly fascinating here is how our deep intrinsic need for connection, for belonging, for social approval can be so effectively harnessed for positive habit formation. We really want to fit in and be accepted by the groups we value.
Okay, practical takeaway time. Identify a specific habit you really want to cultivate in your life. Now pause and really consider. Can you find a community, a group, either online or offline, where that habit is already the normal, expected behavior? Actively seek out people who already embody the behaviors you aspire to. Their collective influence, the shared norms, the mutual support. It can be an incredibly powerful force helping you along your journey.
Okay, the final insight under Make It Attractive takes us a bit deeper into understanding the root causes of our behavior, especially bad habits. This is Chapter 10, How to Find and Fix the Causes of Your Bad Habits. The core idea here is incredibly insightful, I think. Every single behavior, even a seemingly irrational or self-destructive bad habit, is actually trying to solve some kind of problem for you. Usually it's an underlying emotional need or discomfort. To truly break a bad habit for good, you need to understand and then reframe the underlying craving it serves, and then find healthier, more constructive alternatives that genuinely address that deeper need.
This is such a crucial distinction, and one I think many people miss when trying to break bad habits. They focus only on stopping the behavior itself. But bad habits aren't just random acts of, weakness or self-sabotage. They are often deeply rooted coping mechanisms.
Exactly. They provide a temporary fix, a quick release for underlying feelings like stress, boredom, loneliness, uncertainty, anxiety, or even just a need for comfort.
That urge to mindlessly scroll through social media, for instance, it might not really be about wanting to see updates. It might be a way to temporarily escape a feeling of boredom or maybe inadequacy or just the discomfort of being alone with your thoughts. It provides that quick hit of distraction or stimulation.
So the truly effective strategy isn't to simply try and eliminate the craving itself, which is often futile and just leads to frustration. It doesn't work long term. Instead, it's about identifying the underlying emotional need that the craving is trying to satisfy. What problem is this habit actually solving for me, even if poorly? Once you understand that deep need, then you can find healthier, more constructive ways to meet that same need directly.
So address the root cause, not just the symptom.
Precisely. For example, if you consistently find yourself overeating when you feel stressed, the real craving isn't necessarily for the food itself. The craving might be for stress reduction, or emotional comfort, or maybe just a feeling of control. The food is just the convenient, immediate, but ultimately unhelpful solution your brain is latched onto.
And this is where finding substitutes becomes your really powerful tool. Once you identify that underlying craving, the need for stress relief, say you can actively and consciously offer healthier alternatives that fulfill that same emotional need in a better way. So if stress usually leads you to the biscuit tin, maybe try going for a brisk 5-minute walk instead. Or try journaling your thoughts, or listening to some calming music, or calling a supportive friend just to vent for a few minutes.
Redirecting the energy.
Exactly. This shifts your whole approach from suppression, trying to white-knuckle it and fight the urge, to intelligent substitution. And that is far more sustainable and empowering in the long run. You're not fighting the craving, you're outsmarting it by giving your brain a better way to get its needs met.
Okay, your practical takeaway here. Think about one specific bad habit you genuinely want to break. Take a moment, maybe even grab a piece of paper, and reflect honestly. What underlying emotional problem does this habit solve for you, even just temporarily? What feeling does it help you escape or achieve? Then how can you reframe that craving, identifying the true, deeper need? And finally, brainstorm some healthier, more constructive responses you could try instead the next time that craving hits. This deeper reflection can truly unlock new pathways to lasting change.
All right, we've covered making our habits obvious and attractive. Now we get to the third law, which is all about make it easy. This feels very practical. This brings us to Chapter 11. Walk slowly, but never backward. And the core insight here is that the real key to building habits isn't about achieving perfection in how you do them, especially at the start. It's about sheer repetition and consistent action, no matter how small.
That's absolutely spot on. The emphasis here is unequivocally on repetition over perfection. Performing a habit, even imperfectly, even if it's just for like 30 seconds, is always, always more important than striving for some ideal, flawless execution that maybe feels intimidating.
Just doing something.
Exactly. Just doing something. Yeah. Because the more you repeat an action, even a tiny one, the more ingrained it becomes in your neural pathways. You're literally carving the habit groove deeper with each repetition. Consistency builds the habit, not flawless performance or some heroic level of effort. Think of it like carving a path in a forest. A tiny, consistent trickle of footsteps day after day will eventually create a clear path, maybe even more effectively than one massive, infrequent bulldozer push.
And this is where clear makes a really critical and sometimes uncomfortable distinction between motion and action.
Ah, yes, motion versus action. Crucial.
Motion involves all the preparatory stuff. Planning, strategizing, researching, learning, organizing. It often feels really productive, doesn't it? Like you're making progress because you're busy.
Feels good, yeah. Ticking boxes.
But it doesn't actually produce results in terms of the habit itself. You're just preparing to do something, you haven't actually done it yet. Action, on the other hand, is the actual doing of the habit. Lifting the weight, writing the sentence, making the sales call.
That's what moves the needle.
Right. Motion can easily deceive us into believing we're making progress, when in reality, we haven't taken the step that actually moves us closer to the goal. It's so easy to get stuck in perpetual planning or learning mode, feeling productive but never actually starting.
The elegant solution he proposes, then, is to start incredibly small. Almost absurdly small. The smaller the initial step, the less resistance you'll feel, the less intimidating it seems, and the easier it becomes to simply begin. The goal is purely to build momentum.
Like the 2-minute rule we'll get to.
Exactly, it leads right into that. Instead of aiming to write a whole chapter, just aim to write one single sentence today. That's action, not motion. And it builds the fundamental habit of sitting down to write. It's all about making the starting line so ridiculously close that you practically stumble over it. You can't not cross it.
Okay, practical takeaway time. For any habit you want to build, identify the absolute smallest possible unit of action you could take. Seriously, can you do a version of it in less than 2 minutes? Even 1 minute. Just get started. Commit to that tiny action, even if it feels laughably imperfect or insignificant. That single push-up, that single sentence, that single minute of meditation, it's a step forward, it's a repetition, and that's what matters most right now.
Okay, expanding on this idea of make it easy, Clear introduces what he calls the law of least effort in Chapter 12. The core idea here is pretty intuitive but powerful. We are naturally drawn to the path of least resistance. So we should strategically design our environment and our processes to make good habits virtually frictionless, while making bad habits require significantly more effort. It's about reducing the number of steps, the amount of energy required to start a good habit.
This is all about creating a frictionless environment for your desired behaviors. The less effort required to perform a good habit, the more likely you are to actually do it, especially on days when motivation is low.
Which is most days for most things.
Let's be honest, yeah. Think of it this way. If your running shoes, shorts, and shirt are laid out right by the door, it's infinitely easier to just put them on and go for a run than if you have to rummage through drawers and find everything first.
That little bit of friction can be enough to stop you.
Exactly. The goal is to make good habits as easy, as automatic as turning on a light switch. Remove every conceivable barrier beforehand.
And this is precisely where preparation becomes absolutely key. It's proactive ease-making. Simple acts done in advance can make a huge difference, like pre-filling your water bottle and putting it on your desk the night before, laying out your gym clothes before you go to bed, pre-chopping vegetables for healthy meals over the weekend.
Setting your future self up for success.
Exactly. These small preparations remove significant obstacles before they even have a chance to derail you. They make the next action feel virtually effortless when the time comes. And conversely, you want to strategically increase friction for your bad habits. Make them harder to do. Unplug the TV and hide the remote. Put the unhealthy snacks way up high, out of sight, maybe even in a locked box if you need to. Block distracting websites using an app during work hours.
Using laziness to your advantage.
Precisely. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it highlights that our innate human tendency towards laziness, or taking the path of least effort, can actually become a powerful ally in habit formation, if we direct it correctly. You're harnessing that natural tendency by deliberately making the desired path the easiest one available.
Okay, practical takeaway. Identify one good habit you want to make significantly easier to start. What one thing right now can you do to reduce the friction involved in doing it tomorrow? Just one small preparation. And for a bad habit you want to reduce, what one single step, one tiny bit of friction can you add right now to make it more difficult or annoying to do next time? Just one strategic adjustment can make a surprisingly big difference in which path you end up taking.
This focus on making things incredibly easy leads directly to one of Clear's most famous and, I think, most effective strategies. The 2-minute rule, which he details in Chapter 13. How to stop procrastinating by using the 2-minute rule.
Mm.
The core idea here is brilliantly simple. Any new habit you want to start should be able to be downscaled so that the very beginning of it takes less than 2 minutes to perform. This creates what he calls a gateway habit, an easy entry point that builds crucial momentum.
This rule is just so elegant in its simplicity, yet it's incredibly effective at overcoming that initial inertia, that feeling of, ugh, I don't want to start. The rule states, when you start a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes to do.
Just the start of it.
Right. Crucially, just the very beginning. The entire idea is to make the starting of the habit ridiculously easy, almost effortless, even if the full habit you eventually want to build takes much longer. So the habit of read for an hour before bed becomes simply open the book to the right page. Takes 10 seconds. The habit of run 3 miles becomes just put on your running shoes and step outside. Takes maybe 90 seconds.
The habit of do yoga for 30 minutes becomes roll out your yoga mat.
Exactly. The goal isn't necessarily to complete the whole task right away, especially when you're starting out. It's just to begin. Master the art of starting.
And these tiny 2-minute actions serve as powerful gateway habits. Once you perform that incredibly easy 2-minute starting ritual, you've overcome the initial resistance. You're already in motion. And once you've started, you're psychologically far more likely to continue with the rest of the task. The hardest part, as we all know, is often just getting started.
Overcoming that initial friction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This rule is fundamentally about mastering the art of showing up. It's not necessarily about the full performance initially. It's about building the consistent habit of starting, of showing up day after day. Consistency always precedes intensity when you're building habits. Just showing up, just doing the 2-minute version is a victory in itself. It builds the pathway for the larger habit to grow naturally.
Okay, your practical takeaway for this gem. Pick a habit you want to start, but keep procrastinating on. Now, apply the 2-minute rule. What is the absolute smallest, most effortless action you can take to just begin that habit today? Something that takes less than 120 seconds. Commit to just doing that tiny 2-minute action. Don't worry about the rest for now. You might just find that once you've started, continuing feels much easier.
All right, the final strategy under the Make It Easy umbrella covered in Chapter 14, How to Make Good Habits Inevitable and Bad Habits Impossible, is about using clever tricks to lock in your future behavior. The core idea is to use commitment devices. These are tools or strategies that essentially lock you into future good behaviors and strategically prevent bad ones by creating situations where there's literally no turning back, or at least where turning back is very difficult or costly.
This is a brilliant strategy for those times when you know your future self might lack willpower or succumb to temptation or decision fatigue. You're basically outsmarting your future, less disciplined self.
Exactly. You're making the decision now when you're motivated and clear-headed to constrain your choices later.
Commitment devices are basically tools or strategies that make a future action much more likely by requiring some kind of commitment or setup in advance. It removes the need for relying on willpower in the actual moment of decision or temptation.
Think of it as pre-committing to your desired behavior before the temptation even has a chance to arise. You're automating the good choice. Examples of pre-commitment can be really diverse and quite creative. It could be something simple like deleting tempting food delivery apps from your phone so you can't easily order unhealthy food late at night. It could be setting up automatic savings transfers from your paycheck the day you get paid so the money is moved to savings before you even see it or have a chance to spend it.
Making saving effortless.
Exactly. Or it could be something more formal, like signing a contract with a friend or using an accountability app where you might face a small financial penalty if you fail to meet your goal. This also extends powerfully to automation in general. Automating good behaviors like bill payments, investing, or even pre-scheduling workouts in your calendar makes them almost inevitable. And conversely, you can automate the prevention of bad behaviors, using website blockers to automatically limit social media during work hours, using smart plugs to automatically turn off the TV or Wi-Fi at a certain time each night. You're making the bad habit impossible, or at least very difficult, by removing the opportunity.
Okay, practical takeaway. Think about a good habit you desperately want to make feel inevitable, almost automatic. Or think about a bad habit you're really determined to make impossible, or at least much harder to do. Can you implement some kind of commitment device today that fundamentally removes or restricts your ability to opt out or give in later? Be creative. It's about being smarter than your future self's impulses.
All right, we've journeyed through making our habits obvious, attractive, and easy. Now we arrive at the final, crucial piece of the puzzle. The fourth law. Make it satisfying. Because even if a habit is obvious, appealing, and simple, if it isn't satisfying in some way, you're unlikely to stick with it long term. This brings us to chapter 15 and what Clear calls the cardinal rule of behavior change. The core idea is simple, yet absolutely fundamental to understanding human motivation. We're inherently more likely to repeat a behavior when the experience is immediately rewarded or satisfying. So, to make habits stick, especially in the beginning, you need to find ways to link your desired habits to some form of short-term satisfaction.
This is such a key insight because it explains why breaking bad habits is so hard and building good ones can feel like such a slog initially. Our brains are fundamentally hardwired for immediate gratification. We prioritize immediate rewards over delayed ones. It's just how we evolved.
Exactly. Survival often depended on immediate results.
Right. The challenge is that many good habits like consistent exercise, healthy eating, saving money, learning an instrument have significantly delayed rewards. The fitness results, the financial security, the musical skill, they take weeks, months, even years to fully materialize. Meanwhile, many bad habits like eating junk food, scrolling social media endlessly, smoking, procrastinating provide immediate, instant rewards or relief. That dopamine hit is right now.
Which makes them incredibly sticky.
Exactly. That mismatch in timing is precisely why building good habits often feels like swimming upstream against our own nature.
So the ingenious solution Clear proposes is to consciously bridge that reward gap. You need to find ways to create artificial immediate rewards for your good habits, especially in the early stages. These immediate rewards act as a stand-in, providing that necessary hit of satisfaction until the natural intrinsic reward, that deep satisfaction of identity formation we talked about, the pleasure of being the kind of person who does that habit eventually takes over.
Like training wheels for satisfaction.
That's a great way to put it. For instance, maybe you put $1, or even just a check mark, into a fun jar each time you complete your workout. Then, at the end of the month, you use that accumulated money or tally for something genuinely enjoyable. The goal is to make the experience of completing the habit itself feel satisfying right away, to create a positive emotional marker immediately after you finish. It raises that important question. How can you get creative and inject some immediate gratification into your long-term goals and the daily processes that lead to them?
Okay, practical takeaway time. For a habit you're genuinely trying to build right now, what small, immediate reward can you give yourself right after you complete it? It doesn't have to be big or expensive or unhealthy. It just needs to be noticeable and positive. A moment of relaxation, listening to a favorite song, a mental high five, crossing it off a list, something that gives you a little hit of satisfaction or a clear sense of accomplishment right then and there. That positive reinforcement is absolutely key.
Okay, another incredibly powerful strategy for making habits satisfying is leveraging the power of visual progress. This is covered in Chapter 16, How to Stick with Good Habits Every Day. The core insight is that habit tracking, visually monitoring your progress, provides clear, undeniable evidence of your consistency, which is inherently satisfying and incredibly motivating in itself.
Oh, habit tracking is just brilliant in its simplicity and effectiveness. I've found this really helpful personally. It's incredibly straightforward. You just use a simple wall calendar, a bullet journal, a spreadsheet, or even a dedicated habit tracking app to mark off each day you successfully complete your desired habit.
That little check mark or X.
Exactly. That simple act creates an undeniable visual record of your efforts. It's a tangible testament to your consistency. You can literally see your progress accumulating day by day, week by week. It makes the invisible visible.
The classic example everyone mentions is Jerry Seinfeld's "don't break the chain" strategy for writing jokes every day. He would apparently get a big wall calendar and mark a big red X over each day he completed his writing session.
Just seeing that chain grow.
Exactly. His primary motivation eventually became less about the writing itself and more about not breaking that beautiful, long, unbroken chain of X's. It's a powerful visual cue that transforms abstract progress, I've been writing consistently, into tangible, self-evident proof. Look at that 45-day chain.
Yeah.
The benefits of tracking are really multifaceted, hitting multiple laws. It's obvious the calendar itself is a cue. It can be attractive, seeing the chain grow is motivating. It's incredibly satisfying. The physical act of marking it off feels good. And it gives you that immediate, clear measure of success for the day. Did I do it? Yes. Check.
And crucially, tracking provides that tangible proof of your consistency, which powerfully reinforces your desired identity. You start to genuinely see yourself and believe yourself to be a person who works out every day or a writer who shows up consistently because you have this long, unbroken chain of check marks or X's right there staring back at you. It's a powerful psychological anchor for that identity shift.
Okay, your practical takeaway here is simple but potent. Start tracking just one habit you really want to stick with, starting today or tomorrow. Use a ridiculously simple method, a basic paper calendar, a sticky note on your bathroom mirror, a free app. Don't overcomplicate it. Just commit to marking it off each day you do it. The visual progress you accumulate will genuinely surprise you with its motivating power. Don't underestimate the satisfaction of not breaking the chain.
All right, the final piece of the Make It Satisfying puzzle, discussed in Chapter 17, is about harnessing the power of social forces, how an accountability partner can change everything. The core idea here is that making your habits public in some way and involving an accountability partner or even a formal contract adds social consequences to the mix. This makes inaction, failing to follow through, significantly more unsatisfying and undesirable.
This taps directly into one of our most fundamental human drives, the innate desire to avoid the social pain of failure, embarrassment, or letting someone down. We generally care quite a lot about what other people think of us, especially people we respect. We want to avoid negative judgment, and we crave social approval and belonging.
Nobody likes looking bad.
Exactly. Knowing that someone else is watching or is expecting you to follow through or will be asking you about your progress adds a powerful layer of external pressure and motivation. This external push can be incredibly effective, especially on those days when your own internal motivation is flagging.
And this is where habit contracts come into play, taking accountability to a more formal, structured level. It's basically a formal agreement you make, usually with an accountability partner, that clearly outlines your desired habit or goal. Crucially, it also explicitly states the consequences of failure, which could be social, like having to admit failure publicly; financial, like having to pay your partner or donate to an organization you dislike; or even just performing a small, unpleasant task.
Raising the stakes.
Precisely. It also often outlines the rewards for success. A dramatic example Clear mentions is writing a check to an organization whose views you strongly oppose, giving it to your accountability partner, and instructing them to mail it if you fail to meet your weekly goal. The intense aversion to that consequence becomes a very powerful motivator.
And while developing strong internal motivation is always the ideal long-term goal for sustainable habits, let's be realistic. External accountability can be an incredibly powerful short-term lever. It can get you started, help you maintain consistency through rough patches, and bridge the gap until the habit becomes more intrinsically rewarding.
Right.
It's truly remarkable how much we humans are driven by the fear of social disapproval and our deep-seated desire for social approval. It's a primal force, and we can skillfully harness it for positive change.
Okay, practical takeaway. Consider finding an accountability partner for a key habit you're working on. This could be a trusted friend, a family member, a colleague, maybe even someone in an online group. Share your specific habit goal with them. Establish a simple system for checking in regularly, maybe a quick text each day or a brief chat once a week. You could even create a mini habit contract with small, agreed-upon consequences and maybe rewards.
Yeah.
Just a simple act of having someone else know your intentions and expect an update can be a profound game changer for sticking with it.
All right, so we've covered the 4 laws in detail. Now let's briefly touch upon some of the advanced tactics Clear discusses towards the end of the book for really optimizing your habits and ensuring your results truly last. One crucial aspect, explored in Chapter 18, The Truth About Talent, is understanding the interplay between your habits and your natural inclinations or genetics. The core idea here isn't that genes are destiny, but that strategically tailoring your habits to align with your natural strengths, your personality, and your genuine interests can make a huge difference. While effort is undeniably crucial, leveraging your predispositions can make habits feel less like arduous work and much more like enjoyable play, increasing your chances of long-term success.
Yeah, this isn't about saying, oh, I'm not naturally talented at X, so I shouldn't bother. Not at all. But it is about intelligently choosing your field wisely, or at least choosing the approach within a field that suits you best. Selecting activities or habit styles that align well with your natural abilities or your core temperament significantly increases your intrinsic satisfaction and naturally reduces the friction and resistance you feel.
Playing to your strengths.
Exactly. It doesn't mean you can't improve in areas where you're weaker. Of course you can.
Right.
But focusing primarily on areas where you have some natural aptitude or interest can lead to much greater long-term success and, crucially, enjoyment. It's about making the path of least resistance align with the path of your desired habit by picking the right game to play.
Right. When you work with your natural inclinations rather than constantly fighting against them, the whole process of habit formation just becomes much more fluid and sustainable. It feels less like grinding uphill and more like slowing downstream. If we connect this back to the bigger picture, it really underscores that deep self-awareness, knowing your strengths, weaknesses, interests, personality, is a critical component of designing sustainable habit systems. Understanding yourself is truly key to designing systems that work for you, not against you. This also means considering your personality habit match. Are you someone who thrives on strict routine and predictability, or someone who needs variety and novelty to stay engaged? Are you an introvert who prefers solitary habits, or an extrovert who thrives on social interaction in your habits? Design habits that genuinely fit your unique wiring, rather than trying to force yourself into a mold that doesn't fit.
Okay, practical takeaway time. Take a moment to reflect honestly on your natural talents, your deep-seated interests, and your core personality traits. How can you maybe adjust your current habits or choose new habits that align more closely with who you naturally are? Instead of constantly battling your own nature, how can you work with it? This intelligent alignment can make the entire journey so much more enjoyable and inherently sustainable.
Another really insightful, advanced concept for maintaining motivation over the long haul is what Clear calls the Goldilocks rule, discussed in Chapter 19. The core idea is that human motivation naturally peaks when we're working on tasks that are right on the edge of our current abilities. They need to be not so easy that they become boring, but also not so difficult that they become overwhelming and discouraging. Finding that just right level of challenge is key for sustained engagement and entering those incredible flow states.
This concept of optimal difficulty is really fascinating when you think about it. Our brains seem to crave challenges, but only challenges that feel manageable, that push us just slightly beyond our comfort zone. If a task is too easy, we quickly get bored, our minds wander, and we disengage, we lose interest. But if a task is way too hard, we feel overwhelmed, anxious, maybe even hopeless, and we're likely to give up pretty quickly.
Discouragement sets in fast.
Exactly. But when a task is pitched at that just right level challenging, but still within our perceived capabilities with effort, that's when we can enter a state of flow.
Yeah.
That's that state Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi talks about, characterized by deep immersion, intense focus, genuine enjoyment, and heightened performance, where time seems to just melt away.
And maintaining this Goldilocks zone is absolutely critical for long-term consistency and motivation because it keeps the process itself engaging and inherently rewarding. You feel challenged, but also competent. It's a delicate balance, though, and one you have to continually monitor and adjust as your skills improve. As you get better, what was once challenging becomes easy, and you need to increase the difficulty slightly to stay in that optimal zone.
So it requires ongoing attention.
It does. It raises that important question. Are you continually evaluating and adjusting your habits and their difficulty level to keep them squarely in this engaging Goldilocks zone? Or have you perhaps let them become either too easy and monotonous, leading to boredom, or too hard and complex, leading to frustration and burnout?
Okay, your practical takeaway. Evaluate a key habit you're currently working on. Be really honest with yourself. Is it currently feeling too easy? Maybe even a bit boring? Or is it feeling consistently too hard, leaving you feeling overwhelmed or inadequate? How can you strategically adjust the difficulty, maybe make it slightly harder, or break it down into slightly easier steps to bring it back into that challenging but achievable sweet spot? Keeping it engaging is key for maintaining motivation over the long haul. It's an ongoing process of careful calibration.
All right, finally, Clear addresses a really crucial and often overlooked aspect of habits in Chapter 20. The downside of creating good habits. This might sound counterintuitive. The core idea here is that while habits are incredibly powerful tools for automating behavior and achieving consistency, that very automation can sometimes lead to complacency, blind spots, or even resistance to learning better ways of doing things. So periodic reflection and conscious self-awareness are absolutely crucial to avoid becoming too rigid or stuck in suboptimal routines, even if they're good habits.
This is such an important caveat, and it really shows the depth of his thinking on the subject. It's not just about building habits and then setting them on autopilot forever, because once a habit becomes fully automated, we literally stop thinking about it. That's the point, right?
Right, it frees up mental energy.
But that lack of conscious thought can sometimes lead to stagnation. We might miss opportunities for improvement because we're just running the old program. You might be doing something the old way simply out of habit, even if a more efficient, more effective, or maybe even healthier method has emerged since you first formed the habit. It becomes an invisible constraint.
And sometimes when habits become deeply intertwined with our identity, I'm a runner who always runs exactly 5 miles before breakfast, we can become resistant to adapting them. Even when evidence suggests a different approach might be better for our current goals or health. We might resist new training techniques, different distances, or rest days because it challenges that specific, now rigid identity construct.
Protecting the identity, even if it's suboptimal.
Exactly. That's why regular conscious reflection and review are so incredibly crucial. Maybe carve out time once a month or once a quarter to deliberately review your key habits. This periodic check-in helps ensure your habits still genuinely serve you, align with your current goals and values, and are indeed the most effective approach available now. It forces you to ask that important question. Are my current habits truly propelling me forward in the best way possible, or have they become unexamined routines that might now be subtly holding me back?
That regular self-awareness helps you identify those potential blind spots, areas where your established habits might actually be hindering your progress or well-being rather than helping. It's about ensuring your systems evolve with you, remaining flexible tools for growth, not rigid shackles from the past.
Okay, so your final practical takeaway. Schedule a recurring habit review into your calendar. Seriously, put it in. Maybe the first Sunday of every month. Use that dedicated time to consciously assess if your current key habits are still perfectly aligned with your most important goals and your desired identity. Be willing to critically examine them, tweak them, upgrade them, or even consciously let go of old habits that no longer serve your highest purpose. Keep your systems agile.
So after this deep dive into atomic habits, what does it all really boil down to? We've explored these truly profound insights, haven't we? Revealing how these seemingly tiny, almost insignificant changes can genuinely lead to monumental results over time through the power of compounding.
I think it means that habits are not just a collection of disconnected behaviors. They are truly the fundamental building blocks of our long-term identity and the bedrock of any sustained progress we hope to make. And crucially, it's not about relying on brute force willpower, which we know is often unreliable and fleeting. It's about strategically and intelligently building the right systems in our lives. The four laws, make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying, provide this wonderfully practical, adaptable framework for creating consistent, positive change. It's not just about a one-time hack or a quick fix. It's a lifelong approach. The beautiful simplicity of Clear's approach, I find, really belies its incredible power for enabling profound personal transformation if you actually apply it.
Ultimately, yeah, this deep dive really hammers home that core message, as James Clear so powerfully puts it. You do not rise to the level of your goal, you fall to the level of your systems.
Which leaves us with a really important question for you, our listener, to maybe ponder as you step back into your day. What one small system, however tiny, can you choose to implement today that will start to build the kind of person you truly want to become, casting that first vote for your future self?
We really hope this deep dive into atomic habits has given you some genuinely actionable insights and maybe sparked a few powerful aha moments for you. The power of compounding these small 1% improvements really is astonishing when you grasp it. And we've covered a whole toolkit of strategies from the book, things like the habit scorecard, implementation intentions, habit stacking, the brilliant 2-minute rule, and the absolutely critical importance of environment design in finding immediate satisfaction.
And just remember, the ultimate goal isn't about achieving perfection overnight. It's about consistent, tiny steps forward day after day. It's about progress, not perfection. These principles, when applied thoughtfully and consistently, can genuinely revolutionize how you approach self-improvement, goal achievement, and ultimately long-term success in any area of your life. If we connect this to the bigger picture one last time, it's really about designing your life in a way that makes progress not just possible, but almost inevitable.
If you found this deep dive helpful, please do subscribe to our channel Better Than Reading, like this video, and maybe save it or share the wisdom with others who might benefit. Until next time, keep diving deep.